Well, welcome to the West Sports Show Trade Week edition. We're 2 days in, and I'm joined by Mitch Woodcock from his North Perth Palace. How are you, Mitch?
I'm well, Quarters. How are you?
It's as crazy as always. Names being thrown all over the place. Not a lot being done at the moment, but let's talk about the Eagles and Dockers. Let's start with the Eagles. Clearly, Oscar Allen is going to move to the Brisbane Lions, and we know now that Brandon Starcevich will be joining the West Coast Eagles. But how is it going to be done, and where are we at?
Oscar Allen's the last big-name free agent, actually, not to go through. So they've got till Friday to have this done. Brisbane are playing a bit of hardball at the moment, though, Quarters, because they want a better deal for Starcevich. So essentially, the Lions want pick 15 at the moment out of West Coast, which the Eagles got last year
From
the
Hawthorn,
Tom Barrass trade from Hawthorn, and West Coast want to give them their first second-round pick, which currently sits at pick 23. So there's a bit of a stalemate in there. That's holding up the paperwork lodged for the free agency for Oscar Allen, which is set to get West Coast pick 2. And it's holding up the Starcevich deal. It's probably holding up Devon Robertson's move to West Coast. We're not sure how that's going to happen as well.
So Devon's out of contract, right?
Devon's out of contract. He can land a number of ways to West Coast. He's surplus to Brisbane's needs. They're going to get Daniel Annabelle in the draft as well. That's why they're after a higher pick to try and match those bids. But right now, it's all centering around Brandon Starcevich for West Coast and how this moves along. And once that happens, I expect some dominoes to fall. The other move that they're trying to make is getting Tyler Young out of Richmond. So he officially requested a trade to the Eagles last week. He will land there. There's a little bit of haggling going on. Richmond were keen to keep him and had a contract offer on the table. But West Coast, they're going to get this young man who's 27, played 35 games in 3 seasons, and that's going to be vital to their key defensive depth after Jeremy McGovern's retirement mid-season.
Certainly going to help out a layer, isn't it, with Harry Edwards and company down there in the back half. So we expect these deals to be done, but as you said, just waiting for a few pieces to fall into place, and one of them will be Oscar Allen. So they have the deadline for that is this Friday, so we expect it to be done way before then. Once the Oscar Allen... So the contract, Brisbane Lions contract is tabled, and when the West Coast, they've got 3 options really. They can accept to match it, they can accept not to match it, or they can try and get another deal done somehow. We know they're not going to match it, so the deal will be through. Once that is done, we expect them to receive pick 2 as compensation because it hits a band, what we call a band 1. It's all to do with age, length of contract, what he's going to earn, and we know that is good enough for a band 1. So it naturally falls after your first pick. So the Eagles have pick 1, so that will be pick 2. Where it gets complicated, you bring in other free agents such as Brandon Starcevich, and it can dilute that pick 2. So this is why they're trying to force a trade, Mitch.
Yeah, so essentially what's happening is that, West Coast, if they brought in Starcevich as a free agent, that pick 2 would be diluted probably to an end of first-round pick, which is not what the Eagles want. They don't want to lose their co-captain for anything less than what they're expecting is pick 2. There's no guarantee it's going to be pick 2. Yeah, even Matt Clark yesterday when he spoke to the media was saying that, they've got no expectations yet and they'll wait.
It's going to be pick 2. It'll be pick 2.
Well, yes, of course. But the way they're playing it, the line they're playing it is they're going to wait to see what the compensation is before they decide if they match it or not. We know they're not going to match it. It'll come through. If it comes through on Friday, even they'll have till Monday. We expect it to all go through quite comfortably. For Brisbane, they've already grabbed Sam Draper. And they're looking quite comfortable. Oscar McInerney's retired, and they'll get Daniel Annabelle, as we've said. So Brisbane making plenty of moves. The Eagles just waiting on a few bits and pieces. And then obviously they've got those 4 extra rookie spots too, which it's going to make some interesting movements. So they've been linked to a few players, delisted Gold Coast midfielder Tom Berry, delisted Collingwood midfielder Finn McRae. Devon Robertson, if he gets delisted, can land there as a delisted free agent or as pick 1 in the preseason draft. And then there's plenty of players around the competition that they could look at too for that sort of area. So it's a wait and see for West Coast, but it all revolves around basically Brandon Starcevich right now.
So you can pick up Cat A or Cat B rookies basically, so more mature age or younger.
Yeah, they can, and they've obviously got a lot of Cat B rookies through their potential ones, through their Next Generation Academy, as well as father-son, including Charlie Banfield, Tyler Williams, Wes Wally, and of course Kobe Evans, who had a tough year with injury.
So it's pretty simple across downtown at Fremantle. Judd McVee wants to be traded to Melbourne, but it just gets a little bit more complex when it turns out what they're going to cough up for him.
So Fremantle made the first trade of the trade period, actually, Quarters, and it's going to be, I think it'll be instrumental in landing McVee. So they traded Liam Reidy to Carlton and essentially went up 3 places in the 3rd and the 4th round of the draft, which Doesn't seem like a lot when you're talking about picks 50 in the 50s and the 70s and 60s. But when you're looking to try and get up the draft, it can actually work out in their favour. So right now, Fremantle have picks 12 and 33. McVee's value falls somewhere in between that, we believe. So Fremantle are in a situation where they can't overpay for him, but they're not going to get it done with pick 33, which can still bump right out to somewhere in the mid to late 30s at the moment.
So they're going to have to work somehow to get a pick 25, 26 in there.
Yeah, so what they'll essentially do is they'll use points from the picks to clubs such as Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sydney, and all those kind of ones that have bids for father, sons and academies to try and, give them all those points through those picks and get a pick in the 20s in to then trade on for McVee. So the Will Brodie trade to Port Adelaide, I would expect to be done in a similar fashion, you would assume, albeit he's contracted, and that'll again give them more points to then go and do this sort of stuff. So McVee might be one that's done a bit later after all these things fall. McVee is out of contract, but Melbourne were desperate to keep him. They're not going to delist him in terms of that way, so they can't pick him up as a delisted free agent, and West Coast would swoop in a pre-season draft if he did come off that list because they're still interested and would love to get him. So, Fremantle do have to make a trade and do have to appease Melbourne in some way. And he's 22 and is going to walk straight into their best side off halfback. David Walls, the list boss yesterday, said essentially he's going to create run and dash and a bit of attacking mindset alongside Jordan Clark off halfback. So it's a big move for Fremantle. Each club, as you know, Quarters, has to make 3 list changes minimum every year. It doesn't have to be at the draft only though, so this will be one of their list changes. They've only got 3 list spots on the senior list because they've had to upgrade Josh Draper after 3 years as a Cat B rookie, as well as Jeremy Sharp after 2 years on the rookie list. So I expect Fremantle to only really have 2 picks in this year's draft at this stage, which I think they'll use their first and their second for, and then they'll have 3 rookies about that coming later on, which I reckon one of them they'll probably leave open for an SSP as they have done in recent years. So I don't expect them to be major players in this year's draft, but Judd McVee is just a nice piece to a team that's bordering on a top 4 finish.
Don't forget Patrick Voss, outstanding result in his SSP this year, so it can be done. Really pleased for Liam Reidy. He wasn't going to get an opportunity behind Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson, so he now gets an opportunity at a club that's losing their number 1 ruckman. He's not really he's a pure ruckman, isn't he, Liam Reidy? He's not really around the ground, Max Gawn type of dominant player. He's just a ruckman. Yeah,
he's a big-bodied ruckman. It's a similar situation to Lloyd Meek in 2022 when he left for Hawthorn, albeit, we're not sure if Liam Reidy's going to be the Lloyd Meek-esque. I do like Liam Reidy's kicking ability. Won the best and fairest at Peel Thunder this year, the Tucky medal, played in a premiership for them, averaged 15 disposals and 30-odd hitouts this year. So he's a really competent ruckman and a good player for Carlton to pick up at 25 to compete alongside Mark Pitnet for that number 1 ruck spot after they've lost Tom de Koning. So, a real simple move for both Freo and for Carlton, really, to basically, one to move up the draft order and one to bring in a ready-made big body to be around those midfielders.
Judd McVee suits a need, that elite kick, dash off half-back. Cooper Simpson was another option there, but they really needed to address that. The one left is probably that extra big-bodied midfielder. Who do you think may be out there that can fill that need?
Yeah, I think that's a really hard one. I think that's where they'll look to, develop a Murphy Reid and potentially Erasmus and Johnson going into the future. What I like about McVee is he might not be the most elite of kicks, but I think he's a really mature decision maker. And I think sometimes that's just as good as having the skill to hit those targets. I think he'll know when to go and when not to go, which could be really handy for Fremantle across halfback. So, and then also if they need to, he can then go down and play a lockdown backman role if they're desperate. So, when Bailey Humphrey, Jamie Elliott and those guys got hold of Fremantle, they really missed that lockdown small defender, which I think Brandon Walker probably is suited to as well. Yep. But McVee is your, pull in case of emergency clause there.
Why didn't they go after a Christian Petracca? Was it clearly cost? Because big body, midfield, rotate through high forward, kicks goals, gets through the front of stoppage. To me, seemed like the little bit of icing on the cake for them.
I think there's 2 reasons, Quarters. The first is simply salary cap squeeze. Fremantle have a lot of players on long-term deals on big money. Jackson, Sarong, well, Sarong not long-term, but, big monies. But Brayshaw, Brennan Cox, Jai Amos, Josh Tracy, I can keep reeling them off. Jordan Clark, they've got players on big money contracts. So to fit a player that's going to be asking for $1.4, $1.5 million a year over 5 years into your club is quite expensive. I just don't think they simply have the cap room. The second reason I think, Cord, is Petracca is very much a handball player these days. He's not that penetrating kick. And realistically, that's what they've got in Brayshaw and Sarong. They really need a kicking player through that midfield. That's where I think a Murphy Reid or a Shea Bolton can really, transform, and maybe even an Erasmus if he can get that confidence up. So, look, he can suit that big body midfield role, but I'm just not sure he adds that extra dimension that Fremantle truly need. And I just think the cost far outweighs the benefit for them.
And missed out on Jay Sarong, who is now brother of Caleb, of course, who has now asked for a trade to Sydney, which I think he'll be better suited at. I think there's an opportunity for him to slot in there into the back half.
Yeah, so Jai Sarong basically would have been third or fourth in the pecking order. Oscar McDonald probably still just ahead of him. And obviously then Brennan Cox and Alex Pearce. I think a long-term option he would have been, but he's going to walk straight into Sydney's back line. They need a reshuffle to try and get their forward line working, and they don't really have a lot of good key backs, so they've just delisted Aaron Francis. So, you can see why he went to Sydney. You can also see why North Melbourne were definitely interested in him. Fremantle would have had a really red-hot crack, but just couldn't get the deal done. So, you can understand why he's picked Sydney overall. Disappointing for Freo fans, but he doesn't want to leave Hawthorn, where he's a twice fairest and best at Box Hill, to end up playing at Peel Thunder. For Fremantle, it's not the end of the world. Hugh Davies finished second in Peel Thunder's fairest and best, is coming along quite nicely. Charlie Nichols is a young key forward that can go back. They've got some options down there. I really like the way they're working through it. So they're just going to take time, but Alex Pearce and Brennan Cox can still be those pillars in defence with Oscar McDonald as that backup.
Mitch, how's your drinking water going at home?
It's not bad, Quarters. I'm drinking plenty post-surgery, so I'm good.
That's right. You have been in for a post-season clean-up surgery. How are you feeling?
I'm well, but I think we need to, talk about some people that maybe don't have the drinking water that we've got in lovely Perth.
So, Mitch, I'm advising you to get the home improvement the whole country is talking about. Complete home filtration. A water filter for the whole home. That means you'll experience not only better tasting drinking water, also healthier skin and, in your case, hair. Reduced scale on shower screens, prolong the lifespan of your appliances, and so much more, Mitch. Complete Home Filtration has tens of thousands of happy customers, and you'll be raving about your water from the first drop. Visit CompleteHomeFiltration.com.au now and book your free in-home consultation today. That's CompleteHomeFiltration.com.au. Beautiful segue, Mitch. Straight into the AFL Combine.
Yes, that was held at the weekend, the National Combine. The State Combine will be held this weekend, Quarters, in WA. It's going to be an incredible draft for WA. I think it's going to be quite strong, especially towards the back end. The big one for us this week was Tyler Williams, the West Coast NGA, finished second in the 20-metre sprint, put in a great agility test as well. I'm not sure it rockets him up the draft board, as some people like to think, but it does display his incredible attributes, as an agility player who can sidestep and work really hard. So I expect him to be definitely around that kind of mark as well. So
his Eagles should have told him to hold back a little bit.
Maybe they should have, yes. And Fred Rodriguez, WA captain, was in the top 10 for the 2-kilometre time trial. Leon Kickett was great in the running vertical jump. He's a second-round lock for me right now. Quarters, the 19-year-old out of Swan Districts. Watch out for him. So there's plenty going on there in that space. And then the State Combine will be this weekend, where we'll get a look at the likes of Toby Wan and Ryder Luke. So plenty going on. The impressive one for a lot of people, Quarters, and for West Coast fans, it's really important, is Cooper Duff-Tytler, the forward ruck, was top 10 in the 20-metre sprint and the 2K time trial. This guy's athletic. This guy is Luke Jackson-esque, and I expect him to be
so
very
you reckon
much
he's
in
pick
consideration.
One?
I think he's pick one or pick two. I think he's very much in consideration. This obviously also depends on the bids for the likes of Zeke Euler, Dylan Patterson and such, but I definitely think he's around the mark.
Well, let's call it the natural pick one. What about Dyson Sharp?
Your Dyson Sharp's an interesting one. Obviously, the Lark medalist, captain of South Australia, who won the Under-18 championships. I think he's a real controversial kind of player in terms of this year's draft. Big body midfielder, uses it well, really mature. I just don't think he's got the X factors that some other players do, and that's what clubs look for these days. But I think he could be one of those ones that reliably plays 300 games for a club. So it's going to be interesting to see where he lands. Josh Lindsay's another one out of Victoria that I really like, so I'm curious to see how he goes too.
Bit of AFLW news around Mitch, and this AFLW update is brought to you by Woodside Energy, a proud major partner of the Fremantle Dockers, supporting local footy from grassroots to greatness. Bit of news you wrote about this week, Mitch. So the draw revealed for the final round, and for West Coast, who is chasing a maiden finals berth and doing pretty well at the moment, they've got Carlton on a Friday night, October 31. It's a 6:15 p.m. game at Sullivan's Logistics Stadium. So they're going to be right in the mix. It could come down to this last game, so it'll be really interesting to see what sort of a crowd they get. There's 6 on the ladder at the moment. 5 wins, 3 losses. They've had back-to-back really impressive wins, a 45-point victory at the weekend over Collingwood. That followed another record score against GWS the week before. So a couple of really good wins, led by veteran Dana Hooker at the weekend. Lauren Awakfa and Amy Franklin, been good for a couple all season really, but had a really good couple of weeks. 2 goals each at the weekend. The really sad thing for West Coast at the weekend was midfielder Courtney Rowley, who's had a really good season. Sadly, knee injury. It is an ACL, so that'll be a second reconstruction for her. We wish her all the best, and we're sure she'll be back bigger and better than ever. They've got Adelaide this week in Adelaide on Saturday morning. They're 7th on the ladder, so not a gimme game, but got a bit of momentum at the moment, the Eagles. Freo, their news is their final round game will be against Adelaide at Norwood on Sunday, November 2nd at 2:05 p.m. Bit more of a struggle for them. They're 13th on the ladder with 3 wins. The real key to them is their percentage, which is only 64, so really got to work on that. Lost to the Hawthorn last week, had more inside 50s, but just really struggled to use the ball well, and Hawthorn was very good with ball in hand. So Emma O'Driscoll, 11 intercepts as a defender. Aisling McCarthy and Mim Strong were also very good, but just couldn't get the job done. They've got Melbourne on Sunday at Freo. The Demons are second on the table, really have to win it, Mitch, to have any chance of playing finals.
Yeah, they've got a really poor percentage quarters of 64, the Fremantle Dockers, so they need to win pretty much every game from here on in to be a shot at finals. West Coast, Daisy Pearce, is what she's done in the last 18 months is remarkable. To turn this team from, non-competitive at times to a team that can now play finals. So it's a credit to her and the list that they've built and the form, the game plan, the confidence they've instilled and the change of culture. So really looking forward to seeing what West Coast can do in the back half of the season. It'd be a great story if they made finals.
And Dockers won't be too far away. They have had a really tough draw this season, so they have been up against it, but we're sure Lisa Webb and the girls will be back before too long. This has been the West Sports Show. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. And Mitch, we will be back at the conclusion of trading to talk through what it means for West Coast and Freo and indeed a few of the other clubs.
It's going to be a massive finish to this trade period. The names are Clayton Oliver, Christian Petrarca.
Does Zach Merritt, does it get done?
It gets done, but there's some massive names. We've got a big, 8 days, including here in WA. I can't wait to see how this goes. And Quarters, we'll talk about it next week. We'll dissect it all. We'll find the winners, the losers. We'll discover who paid overs, who paid unders, and who's getting $1 million a year.
Mitch, thanks for your time. Look forward to talking to you next week.
Thanks, Quarters.